Hey everyone, welcome back to the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. I'm your host, Erika, and today we are going to talk about a very emotional and powerful conversation. I am here with Dr. E today, and I am so excited for you to be here. So, welcome, Dr. E.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with you, Erika.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me this morning. So, I want to kind of start and dive into a little bit about today's conversation. I know it's healing after a cesarean. Can you explain a little bit about your backstory first, and then we can go dive into this conversation?
Sure. I like to really name I'm a person first, with visual impairment. I've had over 30 eye surgeries and lost most of my eyesight over about the time I was 6 to 22. And I was going to go to law school. I double majored in environmental studies, political science, was on my way for that, and then had my 30th eye surgery, which completely changed the trajectory of my life. And that led me down this path to chiropractic school via massage school. And then I eventually got a second doctorate. I did a master's to PhD program in somatic depth psychology. And when you are about to write your dissertation, you have to look for a gap in the literature because you can't write about something that everyone else is writing about. You can build on their stuff, but you have to find that gap. And I joke, I fell into like a glacier crevasse because nobody was writing about cesarean birth from that cross-cultural perspective within depth psychology or somatics. And I came to that because all these new practice members were coming to me in my chiropractic practice that already had I was skewed toward perinatal, but I wasn't like focused yet on perinatal. And they had had unplanned, unwanted, maybe unnecessary cesarean sections. And I noticed they wouldn't touch their scar, and they often didn't want to engage with the lower part of their body.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, they're dismembered. How can I help them remember who they are?
Now that is very, very interesting in reference to your little bit of your background. So I know you are a doctor in chiropractic, correct?
Chiropractic, yes.
Chiropractic. I don't know why my brain this morning. Okay.
No,
So
it's fine. I was talking about this. Like, people always like chiropractics, chiropractic, and like everybody has a different word for it. So that I'm so used to that.
and it's like it's I don't want to say it's a hard word to discuss, but it's a cool thing to learn about.
Yeah.
So with the healing and kind of like a little bit more of your backstory, I know you're a fierce advocate for empowering for women. And can you explain to women a little bit more about what a cesarean is for those that might not know, or how to go about with a cesarean?
Yeah. So cesarean birth or C-section or CB is you're cutting through 7 layers in the abdominal tissue, moving the intestines and organs aside in order to do a surgical or belly or abdominal birth, whatever you want to call it. Belly birth, I think, is a really nice way of describing it because it's still a birth to remove the baby, and we're at 31.9% cesarean birth rate right now in the United States. So about 1 in every 3 births right now are via C-section.
That's interesting. And I had with me, I had a vaginal birth, and the vaginal birth was a little traumatic for me. And I want to kind of go into a little bit more depth of like birth trauma and what is that, and how can we overcome. I know we're going to get in a little bit more into how to overcome the birth trauma, but what exactly is birth trauma for a woman?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a big question because it's different for every single person. And also, a lot of people won't notice or realize or be able to come into a relationship, at least right away, that they had a traumatic birth. Because our culture is like, well, your baby is healthy. It has 10 fingers and 10 toes. Move along. So there's no need to dwell. But a traumatic birth could be a multitude of things. It could be being ignored, disrespected, dismissed. It could also be a higher level of obstetric racism and obstetric violence. It could be the practitioner going against your birth plan or your birth vision, your wishes. And so there's all these different levels of disrespect that can happen that
Hmm.
can lead to a traumatic birth. Or it could be, wow, your baby was really stuck in the canal and you were in labor a really long time.
That's
Mm,
interesting.
yeah.
So, in an instance, I know you talked about a little bit about birth plans and changing the narrative and changing the word to a birth visual. Is that correct?
A birth vision.
A birth vision. So, what does exactly a birth vision look like for? We can use me as an example. So, I didn't necessarily get a chance to. I kind of had a chance to discuss a little bit about a birth plan, but
Mhm.
because I have scoliosis in my back, it was very hard to elaborate and feel comfortable with my physician. And so I want to kind of elaborate on how women can get more comfortable in talking with their physicians or um, seeing other routes in reference to being comfortable, being heard. Because not a lot of people are being heard about their birth plans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't know that about you. And that, especially in this instance with scoliosis, it'd be so helpful to work with somebody who's certified as a perinatal chiropractor
Hmm.
and a doctor of PT who's a pelvic floor PT to help you.
And I didn't know that. So, like, if I would have
Mm.
known that in
Yeah.
2018, I would have
Yes.
been perfectly fine. Um,
Yeah, because there's different positions you can get in because most animals aren't going to go in nature and roll on their back and give birth. That's not a great way to give birth. You're
no,
not you're not working with leveraging your body and gravity. So a
no.
birth vision is more expansive for me. A birth plan really feels like it's like stamped out like has to be this way. But within
Hmm.
a vision, at least the way I really think about it and embody it, is
Hmm.
there's this expansiveness of like, okay, here's some different scenarios and when we go down each one of these scenarios, there's an algorithm. But
Okay.
there's also a holistic aspect as well, like we mentioned with chiro, with maybe a pelvic floor PT or acupuncture. There's so many different ways to prepare that can be more integrative and holistic and empowering. And then
Hmm.
the other thing is to be in therapy if you can ahead of birth because things will come out either from a previous birth or from your childhood or some sort of trauma might come up and to have a doula.
Ooh, now I like the word doula because that kind of picked out for me. So, for those that may not know what a doula is, what exactly is a doula, or maybe um, what are some other terms that most women are not privy to that they can be privy now to?
Yeah, doula is such an interesting term as well because there is some reclamation of it, but there's also resistance to the word. And it's kind of split because doula, I believe, comes from Greek and it means like servant or slave woman. And so there's a lot of resistance to that. But then the other people are like, no, let's reclaim this. Like, we need to serve other women during birth. But some people will call themselves a birth worker, a birth keeper. So they're
Hmm.
really like keeping those traditions. So I'm in some different circles where it's like this birth keeper circle, or whatever they're calling it. So that's what to look for.
I like that. I like that they have different terms for a doula. Now, do
Yeah.
they have different terms for a midwife?
Well, there's subsects of midwifery. There's
Okay.
traditional midwives that is passed down through lineage. They're not typically, but not always licensed.
Mm-hmm.
So then you might run into some issues if you want to submit paperwork for your state for maternity leave to get some benefits. That's something to look out for. They
Okay.
may or may not have malpractice and liability insurance. That could be a problem as well. But if you're wanting that more lineage passed down perspective, then a traditional midwife. Or you can look for there's different certifications like a licensed professional midwife.
Mm.
And then there's another one. I'm not an expert necessarily. It's like LM or CPM. Or you can be a certified nurse midwife. So you became a nurse. And there's different types of midwives, and there's some that work in the medical system that are more medicalized. There's some that are in birth centers or they attend home births. So there's a lot of variations within midwifery. Um, in midwifery, along with chiropractic and other natural health, was
Mm.
really they try to tamp this down At the turn of the Industrial Revolution, as the US and the West was really changing, they were looking, in general, medicine was looking at the body like a machine because everything was being mechanized. Like, that's when we had assembly lines in factories. I'm from Michigan, so that's how it was in Detroit with Ford Motors. Everything was a machine, so now the body's a machine. So they being like the American Medical Association,
Mm-hmm.
really tried to get rid of chiropractic and naturopaths, midwives, to the point in the South, the southern US, there was granny midwives, which were often Black midwives, that were being so regulated that to the point that the local health inspectors could inspect their personal homes at any time, and they had to be perfectly clean, and they had to be in all white, but you couldn't have anything on them. And that's wild because if you're attending births, you're obviously it's messy.
Yes.
So there's a lot of regulations within midwifery and chiropractic that came out of that, like that turn of the century, the 19th to the 20th century. Sorry, I know that's a rabbit hole, but I
No,
find
I
those.
I like it. I'm it's educating me. It's not only educating me, but it's educating other women out there that probably are pretty close to getting towards their birth plan that need to
Yeah,
hear this. So,
yeah.
I have
Well,
another question for you.
yeah.
So, the healing process for the women that are listening, what does the healing process look like um
Uh-huh.
in the terms of healing for a cesarean?
It really depends. If you were in labor a long time and maybe you fully dilated and you went through some rounds of pushing and laboring down, and your provider decided you weren't progressing or it wasn't safe, your baby was decelling maybe, and now you
Mhm.
need a C-section, that can take longer because now your cervix was dilated, it might be swollen, and now you need to heal in multiple areas. Also, keeping in mind, no matter how your baby is brought into this world, when your placenta is brought earthside, it leaves a dinner plate size wound in your womb. So there's just a lot of healing that needs to happen.
Did you say a dinner size?
Yes, yeah.
Like a like a
I should go grab, I have a plush placenta that kids play with in my office. I should grab. This 3-year-old boy walked in my office 2 weeks ago and they were bringing the baby in. And he goes, "Oh, a placenta." And I was like, this guy's going to
No,
be a midwife.
I have heard about the placenta capsules. I was
Yeah.
debating on because I'm not really good with like swallowing pills and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And by the way, trigger warning, if you are listening to this, I want you to make sure that you're listening with care, moms out there, because we're talking about many different things with the healing of a cesarean. So I just want to put that trigger warning out there. Take care of
Mhm.
yourself, and you can take breaks during this conversation today.
Yeah.
But back to the placenta capsules, I was like, they're kind of big. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to take this. And
Yeah.
they say it like supposed to be naturally healing the body with the placenta capsules. And I
Mhm.
know we touch a little bit about the holistic approach. What kind of holistic approaches can you take for the healing process of a cesarean?
Yeah, really holistic would to be toward the end of the third trimester, taking chlorophyll. You can think about chlorophyll as the blood of plants. You could get in a tincture, maybe make your teeth a little grinchy green temporarily, or you can get it in capsules. There's different ways of taking chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is full of vitamin K, really important for clotting factor. I have my patients take chlorophyll after giving birth, a couple every hour.
Okay.
And finding a good reputable brand that's organic is preferable. That really helps stop the bleeding pretty quickly. Again, this is not medical advice. I'm not your doctor. Something to ask your provider about.
She is not your doctor, people. She
I
might be
am not.
mine coming soon, but she is not your doctor, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So,
So
and
that's a good.
she's amazing, by the way. Um, so with that, it's kind of like I wish I would have taken a cesarean, but the thing is
Um,
I was so timid and scared. Being a first parent in general is terrifying because there is no book on being a parent, you know? And um I felt like when I was giving birth and they were telling me, well, you have the option to do this or that. I
uh-huh.
really think that, on a side note, that physicians need to be more aware of when you're giving a first time mom a choice and this is a life or death situation, maybe you should have brought that up in their birth plan.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree. When I did my research, I interviewed people who had unplanned C-sections, and the number
Mm-hmm.
one theme I found, and I've found four themes, was that I had a birth plan and C-section wasn't part of it. And every single person I interviewed said, I totally spaced out, didn't listen to the little C-section part of my childbirth education course because I didn't think it was going to be me. But the reality is, 1 in 3 births in the United States are C-section. And that's not great.
Interesting.
The World Health Organization says it should be between 10 and 15%, and there's no benefit, no decrease in morbidity or mortality for the mom or baby over 15%. So it's overutilized, but we also need to know the context of the individual hospitals and providers. So it's really important to pay attention and ask those questions, like, what are the situations in which I could be looking at a C-section? Get to know your provider. But this is, again, why having a doula is so important. And the research shows that having a doula is the number one way to prevent a cascade of interventions, which could be anything from really early on, unnecessarily, perhaps sweeping your membranes, giving you
Okay.
Pitocin, or other prostaglandins like Cytotec, Cervidil, those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, which can all this cascade into then, oh, now we need to do an emergency C-section. It's like, well, if we hadn't caused done the Pitocin
Mm-hmm.
and cause the uterus to really contract way too hard, there's all these things that can be prevented. So if you can get a doula, and there's often in major cities birth funds. There's one in LA literally called the Birth Fund that a lot of celebrities are involved with.
Okay.
And that's pretty cool. And I've worked with organizations similar to that, and when I was practicing in Santa Barbara, where people could actually receive grants that went to then holistic providers. So
Oh,
then,
wow.
like, I paid by the organization as the doctor, but
Mm-hmm.
I was taking care of people doing holistic perinatal care chiropractically.
Okay, I didn't even know they had funds for like that. So that's interesting to know. So,
Yeah, or another option is, people give a lot of stuff you don't really need for newborns. Ask maybe your friends help cover a doula or postpartum doula, or
mm-hmm.
maybe some acupuncture. There's different. I have my stuff listed on a perinatal. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word right now. Like it'll come to me
No, you're
somewhere where
good.
all these perinatal providers are listed. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where, a registry. So then you can be like, hey, like, yeah, I want some baby clothes, but also, like, I really want some services and
Yeah,
get that
because
taken
I
care
think
of.
services, I think one of the things I think that in the United States overall, I think healthcare is important, especially for a woman after they give birth. Because I
Mhm.
noticed like once I was getting discharged, like getting close to my discharge and everything, um, some of the nurses were great, but I had one particular nurse because I had a fourth degree tear and I didn't get an episiotomy.
Mhm.
And because I had a midwife sewing me like I was a violin. And so the actual doctor came in and was like, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is so wrong. She's literally bleeding in sheets, like sheets. She's coding. Like we need
Mm.
to figure out. So he moved the midwife and he was like, can you feel the needle? And I was like, well, yeah, I can feel everything pretty much because you're sewing me like a violin here. And I did a fourth degree tear. And so when I was back to getting to the discharge and I had the nurse come in and was like, you need to get up.
Mhm.
You just need to get up because after this, um, you're not going to have anybody to take care of you when you get home with the baby. And to me, I thought that was like an injury to insulting because I was just
Mhm.
like, I went through something so traumatic where I'm about to live or die. And I'm literally telling my mother, hey, if something happens to me, I don't care what you do. Something happens to me, you just run with it. I don't care at this point, because I was at that point of, I didn't know I ripped. I didn't know I had sheets upon sheets. From what I've been hearing was I had sheets upon sheets of blood because I had a fourth degree tear. And
Yeah.
I wish that, one, I wish my physician was there from the beginning. She didn't show up. I guess she was on vacation, which I was really upset. And by the way, ladies, one of the things I learned later on was is you can change your physician. So
Uh,
if you feel like you feel uncomfortable with that physician being, like you said, disrespectful or not hearing what your vision is like, you can change that, which I totally agree. Because if you don't feel comfortable in that instant and you're like halfway through your pregnancy, I would change it, you know? So,
yeah, I've had people change at 32 weeks,
really?
and that's okay. You can, if somebody else will take you and you feel more comfortable, it's way more important for you to feel comfortable. But also when you're in labor, you can change your nurse if you're at a hospital. But that's why having a doula there to advocate and support you and your partner, if you have a partner, yeah, really important.
And that's why I should have went and had a doula, because obviously my doula would have put them in shape. But I had three people in the room. I had my mom, my spouse's mom was in the room, and then my spouse was in the room. So, of course, three people, and you have a full circus from the time you get there to the time you're leaving. You're just like, your mind is just scrambled. And then you got a newborn baby, and you're like, there is no book. So, I want to a little bit elaborate on changing the narrative, because there's so much shame that women feel around cesarean. Like, if, once after they give birth and they look in the mirror and they say, "Oh, I got this huge scar."
Yeah.
How can we change that narrative from them feeling that it's okay to have that scar and not be ashamed?
Scar is a window into how your baby came earthside. And so as you start feeling comfortable to put some different textures, maybe like a washcloth, and start touching around
Mhm.
the scar can be
Mhm.
really healing. But sharing your birth story, the research really supports this. The more you share your birth story, the more you can make meaning of it and come to a place of wholeness. For millennia, in most cultures, women would sit in circles and share this wisdom. And we don't do that much anymore. And that's really important. And so that can really help. And then seeking some outside help from maybe a pelvic floor PT, acupuncture, or an occupational therapist, even to work on the area. Because if you end up in a C-section and it's necessary, then we don't want to have scar tissue and adhesions to your intestines. So that's why doing scar massage around it once you're cleared about 6 weeks postpartum
Mhm.
is really important, and you can really minimize that scar. And that can be, and just because you want it to be really mobile, you don't want it all sticky to the other to your organs. So those are things you can do.
Okay, so I know here in the United States they have it to where we have to wait for 6 weeks. And I want to kind of touch on that a little bit with changing that narrative on that 6 weeks, because why do we have to wait 6 weeks when, let's say, for example, I know in other countries like um, in London or UK, they have it to where they have free healthcare, and they literally, I've been seeing on TikTok where there was a lady, she lives now in Dubai, and she was talking about the versus of healthcare in the United States versus like healthcare in Dubai. And I was really impressed with the way that they took care of the mother after, whether you had a C-section or you had a vaginal birth. I like the way that they took care of the mother,
Yeah.
because they made them feel like, okay, you're relaxed. It's time to start healing your body. Why don't we do that here in our country? It's mind blowing to me, because I want to know, why don't we
Yeah.
do that and take care of the mothers that are going through these things, that you probably had in a traumatic emergency C-section, and then like you like couldn't connect to the baby, or just little things. I want to know why on that.
This country is so work, work, work. You meet somebody, the first thing you're like, what do you do? That's not how it is around the world. People don't ask that question right off the
Hmm.
bat. But the US is all about work and getting back to work. I have a friend who's a chiropractor. She married a German man.
Mm-hmm.
She's now fluent in German. She practices in Berlin. In Germany, between the two partners, you get up to like about 2.5, 3 years off for maternity leave. It's very different. Scandinavia get like 2 years.
Did you say 2 to 3 years off?
Yes.
And we
Yes.
get 6 weeks?
Yeah. You know, depends on your state, but yeah, how much we get off. Yeah. It's wild. It's absolutely insane. So, uh,
Insane.
our culture is all about work. And you know, when you look at a lot of cultures, like in the East, perhaps, like in India, in ancient Ayurveda traditions, for the first 40, 42 days or so, the mom and baby are given a hot oil. It's called an ambianca. It literally means loving hands massage
I like that.
every day for 40 something days. And
For
then in a lot of,
40 days. Oh, I
yes,
gotta
and you're
move.
eating.
I gotta move because like that's mind blowing for the fact that of course your states may vary, but
Hmm.
6 weeks compared to 2, 3, you know what can happen. I mean, like, yeah, healing takes time, for
Yeah,
example, but though I am shocked because
right?
6 weeks. I think when the 6 weeks happened to me, technically, I could not walk for about 4 or 5 months after I gave birth to my
Yeah.
daughter. I didn't start walking until maybe April, maybe May.
Yeah, and you should have been referred out to PT and OT and probably immediately. And this whole waiting 6 weeks to see your OB, honestly, it really needs to be pushed back on a lot because it's not even the current recommendation, but a lot of providers still follow that. You should be checked up with in 2 weeks. If you have a midwife, they usually will see you the next day and then the day after that. And then at week 1, 2,
Hmm.
they see you so much more. And so it's, you know, and a lot of midwives, you can get a super bill and then submit to your insurance, but it is often an out of pocket expense. But then when you weigh it, like, when I work with a lot of midwives and OBs as well, and I have some great OBs that I work with,
Hmm.
but and that are actually switching into more midwifery models, which is really cool. I know a couple that have done that, and they'll do home visits for prenatals and postpartums as a doctor. It's so cool. So there's a shift, but it's not across the board. But your
Hmm.
midwife appointments prenatally, it will be like 60 to 90 minutes. When you go into an OB/GYN office where there's, you know, multiple doctors, you're going to get whoever's on call when you actually go into labor. And you're probably meeting with all of them. You're circling through the whole time you're pregnant.
Hmm.
You go in, you wait, and then how long are they with you? Just usually a couple of minutes,
Couple
right?
minutes, and
Yeah.
yes,
Versus meeting with a midwife, 60 minutes.
because on the insurance side of things, really, if you think about it, when you go in and you're going out, they charge you for 30 minutes, and then
Mhm.
you're looking at your insurance like, why isn't this covered? Because I feel like on the insurance side of things that office visits shouldn't be a $30 copay or a $25 copay, depending on what your state is. I feel that copays should be erased, to be honest with
Mm,
you, when it comes to office visits,
mhm.
or how um, chiropractic and acupuncture have certain limitations, which I understand with the limitations of like if they have 6 visits. But what if
Yeah.
this was a serious injury that you had during your pregnancy? It needs to be longer.
I don't even
And
take insurance in my practice, honestly, but I provide care plans and I really try to make things reasonable for families and work with families. And then I
mhm,
have a super bill template they can fill out and submit because I don't want to be told how many times and what I can do.
mhm,
I give my patients a lot of homework because I want to empower people. Like, I'm not here to kill you. Like, your body knows what to do. And so, but I send out, I'll spend hours sometimes after I'm done seeing patients for the day, just sending out homework. It's like I send meditations, sketches, I make them handouts. And so I get really into handout making. I was raised by educators. It's
I
like this
like
very,
it. I have all the information in the
yeah,
world to know what to do versus not having bare minimum information, and you're sitting up here on Google trying to figure out what to do throughout your pregnancy, and you
yeah.
can't. you don't know what women don't know the certain terms, or it's a
Yeah.
first time, maybe the parent is a minor and something happened. It's a lot of things, and I know a lot of laws are changing right now around healthcare, which is very sad, unfortunately, that this
Yeah,
is
for sure.
changing.
Yeah.
And what are some practical tips that women can go through in reference to finding that doula or finding that midwife or that PT for the woman?
A couple things. So first, check out the website Evidence-Based Birth. That's going to give you a lot of information because then you can see what is actually evidence-based. You can bring it up to your doctor and be like, and push back a bit. I also think, based on what we know from obstetric violence and racism right now,
Mm-hmm.
with Black women dying at 3 to 4 times the rate as compared to white women in childbirth in the US, 12 times the rate in New York City. I think if you have the opportunity to have a Black doula or OB or midwife, please do so because that's going to keep you safe. And for me as a white doctor, I find it, my job is to teach other white doctors just so that they can become trauma informed and actually understand what's happening so that
Mm-hmm.
we can shift this what's happening, not even just the narrative, what is happening, full stop. And that comes back even to what I was telling you earlier about granny midwives. Like, that's all institutionalized. And so it's so disgusting and we need to change it. So finding a
Mm-hmm.
provider that you actually feel safe with is really important. Interview your providers. They're working for you. You
Mm-hmm.
meet with different providers if you can. Please do that. That's going to keep you safe. Um, and then there's most areas are going to have some sort of birth collective or birth keeper network.
Mm-hmm.
Inquire about that. See, talk to different doulas. Interview at least 3. Talk to your friends who may have used them as well, and get those
Mm-hmm.
references because we want somebody who's going to be a fierce advocate for you and your birth vision and the safety and health of you and your baby.
And I do want to get into that a little bit more about the bias for a Black woman,
Mhm.
because I feel like the older you get as a Black woman, you're not necessarily being heard into the medical field or into healthcare in general, um, because racism does exist. It does. And unfortunately, it's very sad that a Black woman has to be at the bottom of the catapult versus a white woman that can be easily seen quickly. They get all the special treatment. Everything gets like a red carpet is valid for them. Can we elaborate in reference to the bias,
Yeah.
and why does that keep happening? And how can we change that bias and make people feel, especially for Black women or women of color, just feel more comfortable knowing that it's okay that they can change or see a Black doula or a midwife?
Yeah, I really encourage your listeners find somebody who resonates and you feel safe with. That's the bottom line. You have to feel safe. How can you birth and surrender and relax into that experience if
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel safe? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in fight or flight. And what the research shows, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the research and then some examples from my practice. The research shows that even the most educated Black woman has more risk than the least educated white woman in the US as it pertains to birth. And I've had Black women in my practice with master degrees experience serious trauma, and I've sat with them for hours processing it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's heartbreaking, and it's all it is ingrained within healthcare that Black women should have that archetype of being strong, and that, but also that they're not believed. I mean, even Beyonce, who could afford the best healthcare in the world, struggled with this. Same with Serena Williams, where Serena Williams, they didn't believe her. She's like, no, I've had, what was it? I think it was like a pulmonary embolism, or
Mm-hmm.
I've had this
Yeah.
before. I know what this feels like. And Serena Williams was ignored and she could have died. I mean, that's wild to me, where both her and Beyonce have tons of money and they're ignored. And so it just really shows how Black women are consistently ignored by providers, until it's, on the brink of being too late, or it is too late. And that's, was it Shailene Irving, Kira Johnson, who died at seizures. I mean, there's
Wow.
birth researchers. So there's this, I'm going to send it to you. I follow them on Instagram. Kira Johnson, her
Hmm.
husband, started a group for Cura for Moms, and they are doing such a good job
Oh,
advocating for Black maternal health.
I like that. I do. Because after a little bit of, I felt that was a little bit bias in my situation that I want to elaborate on.
Yeah.
Is once after I had my daughter, and of course, I did the 6 week checkup. Of course, the two doctors that I did have, they were amazing. Um, but because I relocated in a different city, I had to find another doctor.
Huh.
Fast forward a couple years later, I'm here in Houston, and I had got pregnant around the same time I got pregnant with my daughter. About August, September-ish, a couple years later, I want to say about 2022, 23-ish, around that time. And I ended up having a miscarriage. And so when I went into the hospital for the miscarriage, I was very nervous because I was like, okay, I know this is like, I get it. Like, I know what I'm going through right now. And it's just, I can't cry about it. It's going to be okay. And I felt in that instant with me sitting in the hallway, I sat in the hallway bleeding for hours. And I was like, hey, when am I going to be seen? I'm bleeding. I'm legit bleeding here. When am I
Yeah.
going to be seen? The nurse ignored me. Hours went by. No one saw me. I ended up calling um, my spouse's mom. And I was like, hey, I'm bleeding. I don't know what to do. I've been sitting here. She said, you've been sitting here for what? And I said, for hours, legit for hours. And so she called the doctor that was seeing me, and she was like, hey, you told her if she ever go through this situation or something happens, we can call you. So they had me on three-way. It was me, my spouse's mom, and my spouse, and we were on three-way with the doctor. By
Yeah.
the time I was getting seen, I'm in the hospital bed. Mind you, guess where I'm at in the hospital bed? I'm in a hallway, still bleeding,
That's wild.
in the hospital bed. And
Gosh.
so I'm asking the nurse, I'm like, my phone's about to die. I have no way. I was like, can I get, some communication here? The nurse was rude. She laughed in my face. Finally, it was about maybe 5, 6 o'clock was about the time I got into a hospital like room with me, they're dragging me to the room. And so finally the doctor comes in and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, we just been making rounds. And at this point I'm devastated, I'm crying because I already know what they're about to tell me. And I was like, well, yeah, I said, I know I'm having a miscarriage, but at this time I'm just crying because I'm so embarrassed. I've been bleeding from the time I got there to
Yeah.
the time I'm sitting in the hospital. Like, it was so upsetting.
I'm
And
so sorry.
so thank you. I want to talk about a little bit more into that bias because I want people to understand that it's not equal across the board. It's
Mhm.
just not. And a little bit after that, once I had did the miscarriage situation and all that, doctor told me to go see my OB. Went to go see my OB. I was supposed to go and do an ultrasound just to make sure that everything was removed. And I was like, cool, fine, I'll go to this. You know what this nurse practitioner told me at the OB?
Mhm.
If you continue to get pregnant, you're gonna die. And the
That didn't even
doctor,
make sense.
it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, we're going in to see for an ultrasound. I don't. You're insensitive, and they kept trying to push birth control on me. Mind you, I was on the pill when I got pregnant with my daughter.
Uh-huh.
And I told them again, I said, I feel more comfortable being back on the pill. And they was like, well, if you took the pill, you got pregnant. So obviously you don't need to be on the pill. We need to put you on a Mirena. And I told them personally, I said, I have had some family members be on this Mirena and they've had a lot of after effects that affected them really bad. And some of them had to have surgery. So I respectfully do not want to I prefer a pill. Do you know they disregarded me and told me no? And a forced a signature here, like a note of me getting surgery for pushing it to me, kept pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. I kept fighting back. I said, no, I don't feel comfortable. Finally, I signed it and I walked out. I walked out crying.
Uh-huh.
So I walked out there crying. I said, I'm never returning back to this OB, and I haven't been back to an OB since. Sorry, guys, for being a little descriptive. But yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't go back. And so now I'm at the point where I want to go back, but I'm too nervous to go, like most moms are, too nervous
Uh-huh.
to go back, because what if you get the same reaction?
What if you instead find a midwife you can go to? Because midwives can perform any of those, like they can do pap smears, they can draw
Hmm.
blood and do all of that,
Mm-hmm.
where you can have that done in your own house even. And so that's what people don't understand is that midwives can do well women checks. And that often can be a lot safer for people to feel more trauma informed.
Mm-hmm.
That can be really nice. And so that's another option to look into. And then going back, I mean, I'm really sorry you've experienced all that. And I always like to be really clear, like I know I'm a white woman, so I haven't experienced that. I've experienced a lot in terms of losing my eyesight and then being treated like I have, I'm mentally, emotionally impaired maybe because I can't see. And I'm like, no, I,
No,
I can't
everybody should be
see.
treated
So,
equally. That's what we're here
right.
for. Everybody should be,
Yeah.
and the racial bias should not be taking
Hmm.
place.
No, it should not. And even switching, our thought and our language around miscarriage because it's blaming you and yourself, and that's not your fault. And so to pregnancy loss. And there's organizations that can give a lot of support. One's called PLIDA, Pregnancy Loss Infant Death Alliance, PLIDA. They're really helpful. I've done some seminars with them. The other one is Postpartum Support International, PSI. And they have a warm line where you can text or call for if you need postpartum support
Mm-hmm.
in English and Spanish. They also
Okay.
have more than 20 groups that are free online support groups. And it's everything from like loss to like support for parents whose kids, I think they have ones where like kids are transgender or for like gay and
Oh
lesbian
wow.
couples, like very inclusive. And they have all sorts of groups. So I've done some maternal mental health trainings with them as well. Looking for a perinatal PMHC for a therapist. If you see
Mm-hmm.
those letters after their name, they've done extra training and testing to be supportive for perinatal mental health. That's really important. But I think looking for other providers, again, like you deserve to feel safe. And so it may feel safer for you to meet with a midwife who's going to be trauma informed. I was texting with a midwife friend of mine the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just be really clear. Like, I was like, I need to get a pap smear. She's like, Ray, do you want, like, when I come over, do you want to just insert the speculum and everything yourself? What OB says that? None of that.
What OB? Yeah, an OB would have been like, "All right,
Do
scoot
you,
down. Here you
yeah,
go, and we're just gonna
stirrups.
be done." Yeah.
But like I'm friends with a lot of midwives, and they're like, you could be on your side and get a pap smear. Like if that feels safer for you, because I've been at births before where
Mm-hmm.
the nurses are being disrespectful and they don't know or realize or maybe care that the person has experienced sexual assault in the past. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be on their back. That's not safe
Oh,
for them.
yeah.
Or for me, I've had more than 30 surgeries. So when I'm flat on my back, like even on a massage table, like an example of trauma, here's a good example. I get my eyelashes lifted and tinted. And one time, the temporary glue to do the lift when they're curling it
Mm-hmm.
made my eye temporarily glued shut. And because I've had all these surgeries, my trauma response kicked in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I threw the weighted blanket off of me that I was just chilling, laying there while she was doing it, trying to like ground down, have a good Zen moment. Trauma doesn't know past, present, future from a neurological perspective. I threw this blanket off me. I was like panicking. And luckily, the person doing it, she's trauma informed. She was like, you're safe. Breathe in this moment. You are here and you're safe.
Oh,
But
that's
my
good.
body somatically did not understand that because of all my surgeries and trauma from that. So that's what I'm saying. Like finding people that work with you, not
Mm-hmm.
against do is important. And it kind of sucks that you have to like really advocate that hard. And that's why, at least with birth, have a birth worker or a birth keeper, have a doula, whatever you want to call them, or they call themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Very important for you for safety purposes. But find the providers that resonate, because everybody deserves good health care.
Yes.
And, like, or let's say you're seeing somebody who's more perinatal, like holistically perinatal minded, like a chiro or
Mm-hmm.
an acupuncturist. Ask them who they work with, because I'll go through and I kind of know all these different doulas, and I know how they work, and I'll be able to kind of match. I'll be like, tell my patients, like, meet with these two and see who's better for you. I'll help figure that out for the referrals with my practice members.
So I have one last question
Yeah.
one last thing before we go, kind of wrap up a little bit here. I want to touch about, um, we're going to do a little game a little bit in a second, but I want to touch a little bit about the spouses on the spouse end, and how some tips for them in reference to, okay, the mom is going through what they're going through mentally, but what if that husband or the wife, that are seeing all of this stuff, how can they handle their mental space, after helping the wife, or their spouse, or even a surrogate? I forgot to mention that even with the surrogate,
Yeah.
um, with healing after that.
Set up little stations around your house. Even if you're not going to breast or chest feed, like, but you're still going to be feeding your baby, have little stations set up, where you have like a phone charger, you have some snacks, some bottles of water, things like that, so that you feel really comfortable and they feel comfortable. Prep those meals ahead of time. Have that ready to go in your freezer, or maybe some padsicles as well, with the witch hazel and the herbs and
I learned
all of that.
about the padsicles, and
Yeah,
the padsicles was such a lifesaver. Y'all, ladies,
yeah,
I'm telling you, if you ever had a padsicle, you could even actually, what I've learned is after you have the baby and you do the padsicles, you can do those on your cycles, but that's another topic for another day.
yeah.
But
Or
it helps ladies.
there's the black-owned business, the Honey Pot Company, and they do those herbal pads that are really cooling. That's cool. That's great.
I love their brand.
Yeah, that's a really good brand. So I like that. Let's get sponsorship here.
Yes, we're
So,
claiming the sponsorship,
yeah,
Honeypot. If you hear me, come
send
holla
it
at
to them.
me.
I love it.
I
So
love Honey
they're
Pot
great.
because I started, their brand. I had noticed the difference between, um Always, the brand that I mean, I still do Always, but Honey Pot, I really like how they have like their, I can't think of the spray. It's in a white and purple
Mhm.
bottle that they
Okay.
have, and I can't think of the name of the spray, but I would put the spray down,
Mhm.
before doing the pads and stuff like that, just to
Mhm.
help, and it really does help. Like, if you ladies
That's
haven't tried the Honey Pot, highly recommend them, and start tagging them, please, in
right. Yes.
this.
Yeah, their
Um,
vaginal suppositories for pH are really good as well, with a bunch of tea tree in them. That's great after your cycle to reset your pH, or if you're having any pH issues, but they're great. And try to, use organic companies as much as possible, because your skin is a huge organ. If you're using a pad, like, you're absorbing those toxins potentially. So really using clean, like cups or tampons or pads is really important. And then, so send your partner, back to the partner thing. Send them out to buy those organic products, right? Put them to work.
Partner thing, yes.
The other thing is, if you're going to have friends and family visiting you whenever you're ready for that after you have your baby,
Hmm.
have like a bowl or something where you've written out, like, these are basic tests, like, I want consistently done. So
Hmm.
when people come over, they're not just like in your way or being annoying. Be like, oh, can you like pull something out of there? And then maybe it's like dishes or walk your dog, or, basic
Yeah.
things that they can be doing around your house that can be actually beneficial. Because I see a lot of postpartum moms that are coming in and they're like, my mom is driving me crazy, or whatever it is. So having that ahead of time, of like just little things people can pull out of a bowl when they come over, little pieces of paper written out, things they can do, that can be great. Maybe your partner can help schedule a postpartum massage or acupuncture, or even chiropractic, to come to you to do some postpartum visits. that can be really nice. That way you people, all the time, every day I work on babies and parents while they're breastfeeding and they go back and forth, and
Mm-hmm.
if you could stay at home, even better. So having them do that. The other thing we want to note that from like a mental health perspective is that if you yourself are experiencing postpartum anxiety, depression, all those things,
Mm.
your partner has a 1 in 2 chance of also experiencing some level of postpartum anxiety or depression. And that's something I learned through Postpartum Support International during a training. And so we need to be watching out for that. And that's another, cycling back to something we talked about earlier. That's a big issue when we're waiting 6 weeks to see somebody in an OB clinic, because those things can be missed and that maybe it could be too late.
Mm-hmm.
And who often will notice it is the pediatrician, but then the pediatrician is really the baby's doctor. So it gets
Right.
complicated. So that's why we need to switch the system, have people check sooner than 6 weeks, because there's a lot going on. And from that mental health perspective, look out for your people, find out how they're doing. If
Mm-hmm.
you're dropping food, if you're part of a meal train, just check in. It's kind of like when you're getting married, everybody plans for the wedding, but like we need to plan for the marriage, right?
Right.
Same
Right.
with birth. So I'm always like, what's your postpartum vision? Are you going to have
Ooh.
a postpartum doula? Who's going to be there mentally, emotionally, physically supporting you? Do
Okay.
you have food set up? Nutrient dense, easy to absorb foods like bone broths and soups. We
Mm-hmm.
want cooked foods so your body doesn't have to work too hard because it's already doing all these other
You're
things.
exhausted at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Find a lactation consultant like an IBCLC that can come over to you, because often lactation in the hospital is not as great. So
Mm-hmm.
have things like that lined up so that you feel really supported, because postpartum's forever. Once you have a child, you are always postpartum.
That is true. That is really, really true. Well, I want to play a little game with you before we wrap everything up. Um, and so the game is going to be called Words of Association. I'm going to say the word. It's just going to be fun, easy, lighthearted. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. So the first word that comes to mind is motherhood.
That's my greatest wish for myself. Sorry, that's a sentence.
That's okay. That's all
I'm
right.
working on it.
So we're gonna sprinkle baby dust all around that word. Let's see. Cesarean.
I think we need empathy around cesarean.
I like that one. We need to have empathy and sympathy in this world for that word.
Amen.
What about, let's see, another word, hope.
I'd say joy, gratitude, love, all those high vibrations.
High vibrations we need.
Those high vibe.
Let's see. What about spouse?
Oh, I'm waiting to get proposed to. Oh my God, don't. He can't see this clip. No, he knows. It's been a year, so.
Anyways, okay. I was gonna say because my spouse makes me want to sometimes, but okay. And I know he's gonna see this clip, so he's probably gonna be like, "Erica, why'd you say that?" And I'm like, "It is what it is." Let's see, babies.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would say gentle adjustments. But I think anytime I hear a baby cry, I'm like, oh, that baby needs an adjustment. I use my little fingertip to adjust them like you're testing a tomato if it's ripe, and it's so cute. They do
Oh,
great.
the word that I have is toddler because I got a 7 year
Ah,
old and she needs an adjust. She
attitude
needs an
adjustment.
adjustment, an attitude adjustment. Okay, she's
Yeah,
starting to
yeah.
become her little self, and I'm like, oh, you were so perfect when you were a baby. You just didn't talk, and now you're talking. So, okay. Last word I have
Mhm.
would be love.
Ooh, I think that's my word. That's my response.
Oh, okay. I like the response. Okay.
Ooh,
Well,
yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on for a wonderful, exciting empowerment conversation. Of course, like I stated, there is a trigger warning in this conversation for those that have been experiencing pregnancy loss or just experiencing postpartum anxiety or depression. You are not alone. I want to say for myself, I have had postpartum depression, after I had my daughter, and you will see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us where we can find you, Dr. E? Because I have enjoyed this conversation and I hope you come back and we're going to manifest the honeypot coming to me soon.
Yeah, I
So,
love
tell us
that.
where we can find you.
My best place to connect with me would be Instagram at Dr. Elizabeth Wisniewski, and you'll see lots around embodiment there and sprinkled with me working on babies and pregnant people.
Well, I want to thank everyone today for listening to the Balanced Boss Mom. If you are a mama, just know that it's a light at the end of the tunnel. If you're not a mom, that is okay because your day is coming and you're going to have all the sprinkle dust come your way. And it's going to be amazing when you find out that you are in your pregnancy. Again, I hope everyone has a good day. And Dr. E, I hope you come back on this podcast for the Balanced Boss Mom for a part 2 or part
Yeah.
3 or whatever parts you want to come into. So
Yes, absolutely. It's so fun. Thank you.
you're welcome. Have a good day. Bye, guys.